Friends, do you ever feel like your life is an epic joke? And you're just waiting and waiting and waiting to figure out like what's your career path or what's your purpose here in life? Well, buckle up. Today we're going to talk about why I decided to choose a career path that I did and what I've learned through my journey through mental health and how it's also taught me how my life, is an epic joke. And I stand on that. First off, let's get into my relationship my sophomore year of college. Towards the end of it, I started dating a young, smart, educated individual that to this day we're still greatly friends, and I'm truly grateful for this person. I thought that the smart, effective thing was to be vocally honest and be like, look, these are the insecurities I have, these are the problems in which I'm dealing with and whatnot, and just putting it all laid out on the table, because I was like, at least if I tell you everything now, you can't walk away because I kind of told you. Person did the same thing, and we realized like, although it was really effective, when you're not really dealing with those problems and they start to arise, it will take a toll on your relationship. Insecurity started flaring up, like uncomfortabilities, lack of boundaries on both sides started to flare up. And me just not addressing certain things that was happening from my childhood, addressing in my household, or just like addressing the things that I was feeling personally, even with the gripe that I might have had with that said individual. My significant other came to me and was like, bruh, it's either I'm going to be your therapist or I'm going to be your significant other. I cannot do both. You need to make a choice. Now, granted, at the time, it felt like a slap in the face. But now that I'm older, I realize they were onto something.
Why can't they do both?
What you mean, why can't they do both?
Yeah, like obviously you felt a slap in the face because I feel like, why can't you do both?
Everybody's not equipped with those tools though. So you can't be mad at that person if they say like, I need you to be my therapist and like work on these things or like help me address these things and help me navigate it, if they don't have the tools themselves to figure that out. And they're also trying to figure out their own life. Me being young and realizing like, for one, you barely got the tools for certain things and I barely got the tools for certain things. Like, how can I really depend on you for that? Like, that's kind of just not fair to you. I feel like it's not really a slap in the face in that aspect. Now that I'm older, it's a little petty slap, and the only reason why I say that is because I think as a significant other, it's our job to help navigate the life experiences together. Trying to think that you're gonna go through this whole world and life alone, especially if you're married to somebody or like you're in a relationship, like trying to like, oh, tell your partner you handle your stuff, I handle my stuff. I don't think that's how life is ever gonna go. That I don't think any relationship is gonna like make sense when it does that. When you truly love somebody, I think that you're just gonna have to work on figuring it out together. So in hindsight, that's what happened. All right, now, when I started therapy, I started it my junior year of college. I didn't want this person to leave. So then what did I do? I decided, I was like, yo, like, let me go get therapy. And it was such a, I guess, probably I'm making up a word here, but no, I'm not. A revolutionary experience, because I had somebody that was well equipped with the resources to give me the language for how I was feeling, as well equip me to ensure that my feelings were valid, and also tailor back to like things within my childhood that may be impacting me now for my future. And it was just a cool experience to know that like I'm being understood, but also it also helped me regulate my emotions to a whole different type of degree. And then as I was going through therapy, I realized that like, let's start having these conversations with some of my friends and like having this conversation with some of my family members. And when I was having those conversations, I realized that like therapy was still at this time a taboo, because this is 2017, 2018. It was still such a taboo on mental health within like the Black community, and like how to navigate those services and how to deal with it. I'm not gonna say that it wasn't prevalent, but like, was it talked about so much on Instagram? Was it talked about so much on your social media websites or anything like that? Not really. Like, we still had the don't ask or don't tell policy. Me realizing that it really was still a not social norm kind of made me realize, dag, like, I kind of wish we can have these tough conversations that I'm having in therapy within my friend group or within my family, and like how we can navigate like, you know, different like ways to like maybe heal how we're feeling with one another. They weren't ready to have these tough conversations, like really sit down and look at themselves in the mirror and like evaluate like some of the things that like were traumatizing them from their childhood, or like certain relationships in which they were going through. Like they weren't really that ready to like dive into that and how it was mentally affecting them. Or even I would just notice like the essence of like trauma dumping. But like we're in a stage of like, now we're not in that phase of trauma dumping. Do not trauma dump on me. We in 2024. Like, do not trauma dump. However, with boundaries, if you ask me, hey, can we talk about this? And I give you the ability to trauma dump, cool. But like, we on that asking favors type thing. So the next thing, you know what was really like prevalent that I realized during college? The lack of resources when it came to mental health services within low-income communities, and particularly to like Black, brown, Hispanic individuals when it came to like mental health and even public health resources. When I was working in homes, I noticed a different treatment not only by BCBAs would be giving to my population, which if y'all don't know what a BCBA is a board certified behavioral analysis, and I was an APA therapist, which is a applied behavioral analysis. Sometimes in the more affluent areas, the BCBA would be more interactive in the sessions and would actually talk to the parents more often, versus like in the low income areas there was a disconnect sometimes between BCBAs and the parents because they came from sometimes two different worlds. It made me realize, I'm like, oh, I can see this disconnect. I can see why like people may not like, you know, agree with certain services, or like may not be benefiting from certain services. And there's a lack of like cultural awareness, as well as there was a lack of like understanding like trauma that like parents were going through with dealing with children with disabilities, whether that was in school, like within communities and things like that. Something that I also realized myself is like growing up that there was no mental health services. Like therapy basically was a nuance. It wasn't something that was, you know, very prevalent in like urban areas. Like if you had experienced the death of the family, if you had experienced a traumatic loss of a divorce or a couples counseling or any type of therapy, it wasn't really prevalent. Me just realizing that in the last 5 years and even going through getting my bachelor's degree, it was more like if this is benefiting like everybody else, like how can I ensure that the community in which I live in and the community that like in which I want to serve has the same opportunity to get these type of resources and get this knowledge and whatnot. Something that I also realized is that when working with kids over a year of about 5 to 6 years, was that a lot of kids didn't actually have the ability to talk about even what they were going through. I worked in an alternative school. I've worked in an urban school district. I've also worked in a school that primarily focused on individuals with mental disabilities. And mental health was not always the first thing that a lot of these teachers would even assess, like why the child is behaving the way in which they did. When I worked with kids, I realized that a lot of kids were going through things at home, especially in urban school districts. A lot of the kids would come in and talk about their traumatic experiences that they're having with their families when they were not being accepted by the group of kids that they were supposed to be friends with, but weren't being able to see them past maybe their disability or past like a thing that they were dealing with internally. Imagine if teachers were well equipped and culturally competent with the things that were going on in these households. I think it would have been a completely different experience for these kids to navigate an educational system that might actually benefit them. If mental health resources and certain resources were available and I would say broadcasted in certain areas, it would also help benefit this community, even if we could track it back to in-school areas. And lastly, the one thing that I honestly wanted to do on why I got into this career path is I kind of wanted to heal the little girl inside of me, considering the fact that like mental health was such a taboo growing up, or like things that when it came to my own childhood of like having my dad pass away at such an early age and being raised by a single mom, enduring some of the things that when it came to going to a predominantly white school and only having 16% of Black students, or sometimes being the only Black girl in a ballet class, dealing with, you know, disparities within family dynamics, I kind of realized that I wanted to kind of heal myself, and by going to therapy and kind of by walking in this field and becoming a life coach and learning how to be better habits and learning within the friendships in which I've had over these last several years, it's actually made me a better person. And it's also helped me teach myself that, like, as long as you're continuously trying to put the work in and trying to be a better version of yourself, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I wanted the little girl inside of me to just see that, like, everything you went through and everything that you endured, there's a reason, there's a purpose behind it. And it's okay that it hurt you back then, but it doesn't mean that hurt is your true destiny. And there's something better for you. And I promise you, you'll walk out a little scratched up, a little banged up, but more with a smile on your face. The more you actually take in the knowledge, take in the healing, and kind of build a better relationship with yourself, God, and those around you. So that's kind of really, I guess, all I got for my video diary for today, guys. Make sure you like, you comment, you also subscribe. This is the part 2 of the video diary. We still got a few more parts to go, because it's a kind of like a get to know me. We're kind of doing like a little rebranding here. I want y'all to get to know me as we start to unravel and what's in my chaotic but very clever mind into what I want to do with the community. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.